Hi, my name is Lim Chia Teng and my matrix number is 254924. So, for my research of my title is a study of maximizing the profit of Anglo wax industry at Bukit Minyak by using linear programming technique. So, firstly, we would like to talk about our background of study. So first, in the linear programming, there is a set of variables and assign real values to the variables to satisfy a set of linear equations or linear inequalities involving the variables or maximize or minimize a given linear objective function. It is widely used in mathematics, extend in a business, economics, and for some engineering problems also. Linear programming model can be designed and solved to determine the best option as in a product mix subject to the available constraints. And the next is profit is an assumption in classical economics is that firms seek to maximize profits. So we need to find the points in feasible region at which objective function is maximized in linear programming. So from this slide, we can see that the company that I choose for my study is Anglo wax industry. Anglo wax industry is a company that are dealers and manufacture candles and wax. Anglo wax industry located at Bukit Minyak, Bukit Mentajam. Anglo wax industries offer large array of different candles, just like white-fluted, column, pillar, votive, container candle, festival candle, and birthday candles also. So, based on my observation, Anglo wax industry face a problem that they need to maximize their profit while also satisfy their customers and optimize the uses of raw materials. Anglo wax industry does not have a modern tool of management to calculate the usage of raw materials and resources to produce several candles that can minimize the cost and maximize the profit. They will cost they cannot ensure the optimal of usage and profit. So after my observation, I decided to set two research questions, that is, what is mathematical model to maximize the profit of Anglo wax industry, and the second one is what is the optimal solution to maximize profit in Anglo wax industry. So to solve these two research questions, I also set two objectives, that is, firstly is to develop the mathematical model that will maximize the profit of Anglo wax industry, and the second one is to determine an optimal solution on maximize profit of Anglo wax industry. So the scope of the study for my whole research is we try to determine the profit that earned by Anglo wax industry and the cost of each raw materials and selling price of each type of candle that will be collected. Hence, linear programming was used to ascertain the type of candles and raw materials which would maximize the industry's profit. So the significance of the study is this research we try to know more understanding the applications of linear programming models in industry and also how to apply in our real life. Not only for Anglo wax industry, we also try to let more of the industry that can use think that they wish of the way that can maximize their profit in these industries. Okay, so for the next slide is about the literature review that I use for my research, and the total 15 articles that I have reviewed, and the first 5 is talking about the existing problem that current researchers studies. That the first research is did not optimize usage of raw material in product mix, just like my research. The company also didn't optimize their usage. Second is the harm of bad quality candles. The third is air pollution for burning candles. The fourth is fire disaster caused by candles, and lastly is the uncertainty to market due to COVID-19. 5 of these articles also is talking about the problem that for my involved with my current studies. Alright, so the second part is the statistical analysis or method. So just like my research study that I use, these 5 articles also talking about the linear programming technique they use, optimal linear programming approach, solver Microsoft Excel, just like my solver, linear programming solver, and the simplest method that I use to solve my problem with my solver. So the last 5 articles that I review is talking about the two main topic is the maximize profit and linear programming. So the first is maximize profit using linear programming. The third is maximize profit and minimize their transportation costs. The third is optimize profit via simplest method they also use. The fourth is maximize profit using linear programming. And the lastly is maximize profit and minimize the transportation costs also. So that is the total 5 article for my literature review. Next, we would like to talk about the methodology that we use in our research. So there are some techniques we use from the start and to the end of our research. So from the slide, we can see that our research framework actually we divided to 4 phases. The first phase is to identify the problem definition. So for this phase, we will review more literature and observations. And the second phase is data collection. Researchers make a call to interview the person in charge to get the data due to COVID-19. So this interview is the main data collection method. So the basic problems such as quantities and cost of raw materials that spent by Anglo wax industry for all the candles that we collected is from the phone interview. So the data get are the selling price, cost and production, cost of labor and the types of productions. So in the third, data is analysis by using Microsoft Excel solver. A metadata analysis is applied here. And the fourth phase of the study is result and discussion. The result is discussed and concluded on our next part. Okay, so for the next slide, actually we have set some basic assumptions of linear programming in this study. Because actually there are many changes in the company due to our research period, but we need to confirm the stabilize of our research, so we have set some basic assumption. So the first basic assumption is it is assumed that the number in the objective and constraints will not change during the period being studied. The second assumption is we will assume that the raw material required for production of candle is limited. And the third assumption is we assume that an effective allocation of raw material will aid optimal production and at the same time will maximizing the profit of the industries. And the last assumption is we assume that the qualities of raw materials used in the candles are standard. Okay, so from the slide we can see that we also have the formulation for the studies to calculate the profit, maximize the profit and calculate the linear programming. So there are some steps, 3 steps for this actually to calculate the profit. Is we need to clearly define the decision variables of the problem, we need to write objective function, and we also need to formulating the constraint of problem of linear combination of decision variables. So we can see that there is a formula for this slide, and this formula actually is known as linear function. So this is a linear equation, linear equality, so that we can so this formula is we can use to optimize a linear function subject to finite a collection of linear constraints. And finally, any linear programming problem having a decision variables can be written in the following form, like just below in the slides. Okay, from this slide, we can see the data that we collected from the phone interview, and we categorize the 5 types of candle that we use as x1 to x5 decision variable. So from this slide, we can see the data that we collected from the phone interview. We have 5 types of candle, and the decision variable we categorize them to x1 to x5. And the raw materials that we collected, we use is paraffin, beeswax, hardened fats, pigment, and labor. These 5 is our constraint. So we can see that to maximize our profit, there are also optimal, that is 2.5x1 plus 1.2x2 plus 2x3 plus 0.9x4 and plus 3x5. So we can see that the constraint we subjected to is these 5 constraints. So we will use these decision variables to calculate our maximize of profit later in using Microsoft Excel. So to analyze our data, we use the solver parameter by using Microsoft Excel. So this is the picture that I screenshot from Microsoft Excel to show to you all that this is the solver parameters. We will have a set objective, and we have key in the variable cells and subject to the constraint, and we select a solving method by using simple linear programming, and we just click solve and we will see our data in the next slide. Okay, so from this part we would like to see about the verification and validation. That verification is the process of establishing the accuracy of our linear programming model. So from our research, we will get the data. Linear programming model is based on the data and information that collect from the person in charge, Miss Lee from Anglo wax industry. And the validation, to validate our result, we compare it with the real world outcomes. So we can see that we obtain a real result of the total profit from the 5 type candles is around 124 ringgit and 40 cents per week, and the result for our model solution is 144 ringgit. So tentatively accept the model is valid. So from here we can see the table about the sensitive analysis. In order to analyze the influence of parameter changing the optimal solution, sensitive analysis need to be used. There are 2 sensitive reports in this analysis that contain details related to change in coefficients of objective function and change in constraint qualities values. So actually we find from the above figure that some constraint could decrease its qualities value to increase the model sensitivity. So actually we agree to decrease the quantity values of certain constraints that are paraffin and hardened fats. The allowable decrease of paraffin is 2040 grams and hardened fats is 1080. So after we think that the quantity of constraint of paraffin, we change 3000 grams to 1500 grams, and for hardened fats we change from 1500 grams to 1000 grams. So in the meantime the solution stays at the same. Based on the result we obtained, the result of Anglo wax industry is using simplex linear LP solving method in solver Microsoft Excel. So from the result, the unit produced for produce mix pillar candle, table candle, votive candle, tea light and scented candles are 000 and 48 respectively. According to the person in charge, we form some constraints which are 1 week no more than 300 candles. Therefore, from the results obtained, we can conclude that Anglo wax industry should produce 48 scented candle in order to get optimal solution or maximizing profit. So the maximized profit of per week is 144 ringgit, which increased from 122 ringgit 40 cents to 144, that around 50% from the current profit. All studies is critical that, however, that all studies have limitation that we need to restrict to discuss the limitation for the research. So firstly, actually there are lack of reliable data. So the data of profit and cost for each candle actually are not exact value. So this is because the person in charge of Anglo wax industry just give a predictable value and average values for the candles. Secondly, the number of constraints that we use without the exact number of them, there are actually still some constraints that are not uses. They did not just produce 5 types of candle, actually they produce more than 5 types of candles. And for the for the raw materials, they are also not fully used. We just choose 5 types of the constraint that are mainly used for all types of candles. So this is the limitation for this research. Okay, so for the conclusion, linear programming is a mathematical modeling technique so that can maximize or minimize when subjected to various constraints. So the objective for our research is to find an optimal solution and the mathematical model for Anglo wax industry by identify the main constraint of candles from the raw materials, labor costs, and from mathematical model that can maximize the profit. So the method that we use to analyze our data is simplest LP solving method in solver Microsoft Excel. So we are success to find our optimal solution and mathematical model for Anglo wax industry. So the result that we get shows that Anglo wax industry need to produce 40x of center candle, that's x5, to get optimal solution. And from this mathematical model, we also can conclude that there are 50% of increasing the profit from 100 to 22 ringgit and 40 cents to 144 ringgit. So linear programming technique can be used by Anglo wax industry to get an optimal solution that can maximize the profit. So last but not least, I would like to thank my lecturer, Dr. Norazura binti Ahmad, for support and words of encouragement, and also giving a long time period of guidance, advice, and these opportunities for me to finish this research. I also like to special thanks to Anglo wax industry because they like to spend the time for answer my questions and give me this data for finish my research. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.